Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is Pastor Basio? Oh, you are, sir. Would you like to come and give her invocation tonight?
Hiding in the front.
Yeah, right.
You know what? We live in a great nation, and I hope today that we can all be as proud and privileged in our hearts and grateful for the privilege of being a citizen of the United States of America and a great city called Allen Park. Let's pray. Lord, thank you so much for being here with us, and we ask for your guidance. I thank you for our leadership. We pray for them, that you would continue to give them wisdom as they lead us. And Lord, give us the right heart, a positive spirit to be a participant and not just an observer, a part of a solution, not just pointing out problems. And Lord, help us to do our best and care for one another. And we thank you. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor.
Horrible.
Would the clerk take the roll, please?
Councilwoman Gavarrecki.
Present.
Councilman Templin.
Present.
Councilman Cisco.
Present.
Councilman Hayes.
Present.
Councilman DiGiulio is asked to be excused tonight. Pro Tem Keenan.
Present.
And Mayor Mategas.
Present.
We have a quorum, sir.
Thank you, sir. I'll ask for a motion on corrections and approval of the agenda for May 13th, please.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hayes, supported by Mr. Keenan. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried, thank you. Approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of April 22nd.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Templin, support by Ms. Gavarrecki. Is there any discussion on those minutes? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That is carried. Approval of the minutes for the special meeting of April 16th.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Cisco.
Support.
Support by Mr. Templin. Is there any discussion on those minutes? Again, hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That is carried. We're at citizens' comments on it. It is on agenda items, and at this time you would be limited to the 3 minutes. At the end of our meeting, you will be able to speak at 5 minutes on any item that you wish.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Tim O'Brien. I'm a 20-year resident of Allen Park. Obviously, I don't know what proposal we're going to be looking at this evening for new city hall, but getting new city offices is something that I had been advocating 15 years ago, and things have obviously only deteriorated. Everybody, of course, knows about the disaster with the movie studio thing, but I think a lot of people don't realize that we had a double loss there because at the time that Jimmy Hollywood showed up, the previous administration had already negotiated a deal with Sam Danow for one of the buildings that was, of course, still his at the time, the big building in the back that was originally built for Ford. That it was unfinished, though. It didn't even have walls and floors in it. And the deal was going to be, as I recall, I think it was a total of either $11 or $12 million, that the city would front $1 million and provide blueprints built to spec to Mr. Danow, who would then spend the next year or 18 months turning this into all of our city offices, the police department, fire department, library, everything would be in this one center. At the end, once it was done, he would hand over the keys, and we would give him the balance of the money. I think it was like 10 million or 11, And plus, you got the properties that we didn't need anymore, like where the library is and the fire department. This would have been, I was enthusiastic about this idea. I thought it was fabulous. $11 million, brand new. The building, like I said, is unfinished. It was a fabulous idea. And on top of that, because Dano would be building it to spec, you wouldn't be hobbled by prevailing wage stupidity. He could have built it cheap and got it done. Boom, we could have moved in. And unfortunately, then Jimmy Hollywood showed up and the whole thing went up in flames. Now, I don't know if that is still doable. I know now the building belongs to us, but maybe that's an advantage. But I don't know if this has been considered, but I just thought I would bring it up.
I see no other citizens coming forward. Are there any non-citizens that wish to come up and comment on an agenda item? I see no non-residents. So we'll go to Ms. Parker's update on the City Hall. And Ms. Parker, if you're ready.
Yes. Good evening to members of the City Council and to residents here that's in the audience and non-residents. What we would like to do tonight as part of my update is to talk about some potential options related to City Hall. But before having a discussion about the various options that might be feasible, I was thinking it might be helpful, first of all, to kind of talk about the condition of our existing building and why there's a need to consider some alternate space for the city. Basically, the City Hall building is in a poor state of repair, and it requires substantial improvements. The estimate in order to make the repairs is around $5 million. And in some areas of the building, for example, with the police department and part of the building department, is to a point where we cannot actually operate. And what you see on the projector there on the overhead screen are pictures related to the police department and the conditions that are in place for the employees that work within that department. So we'll kind of go through those and then move on with the presentation. And a number of these areas in the police department cannot be used at all because of the water damage in the building. Some of the repairs that are required or necessary include the replacement of the entire roofing system, the parking lot, as you can see when you come into City Hall, the poor state of repair with the parking lot, the exterior lighting, the mechanical and electrical systems require replacement, painting, cleaning the ductwork, and replacement of the ceilings and the carpet. So over the past several months, we've been exploring what options might be available related to a different location for City Hall, and we've identified, I believe, 4 viable options. We have with us this evening Paul Corneliuson from French & Associates. Paul is an architect. He worked with the Allen Park School District for the improvements of all of their facilities, and he's been working with the city in reference to potential sites for City Hall within the last 9 months or so. And so what I'd like to have him do is come to the podium and maybe talk about the 4 options. For the meeting tonight, we do not plan to get into any detailed discussion related to the cost for each one of the options, primarily because in some cases it requires negotiation. And what I plan to do is to perhaps at a later date meet with the mayor and council in closed session to discuss those things that are more applicable to closed session. And once a decision is made, we can then have a discussion publicly with everyone related to the final selection. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Paul again.
Good evening. Thank you very much for letting us talk briefly about these scenarios. And I think the most logical way to do this is take each scenario on its own. There's a little bit of an executive summary that was put together, as well as some floor plan images that'll help understand, or I should say illustrate, what the intent is in a very conceptual manner. As Ms. Parker said, we had spent some time early on developing a program, an architectural program, with both the City Hall staff and the police department representatives. And so we have an idea of the space needs for these two uses, if you will, and it approximates about 28,000 square feet. And I believe that program is in one of the packets here. The first location that we evaluated was the current community center downtown, and we understand its intense use and specific uses with ice arena and gymnasium components. So there's not much left to take a look at as far as would it be conducive to office space. But there are some areas that might be appropriate or easily adaptable for different uses. In this plan, which is actually rotated, we apologize for that, but the blue areas indicate spaces that would be assigned to City Hall use, and the green would be for police station use. And in a big picture sort of a way, this plan shows that you could overtake, on this plan, the left side of the main hallway, if you will, which includes the current Parks and Rec area, as well as I think there's 4 community rooms on the upper part of this floor plan, and develop those into private offices for department head, manager type spaces, and then outside of those offices you could have open office workstations. The lobby is big enough, we felt, that you could carve out enough space for a city council room for these public meetings. And then because we displaced the Parks and Rec department, we feel that there is some opportunity on that lower part on the right-hand side to reclaim that space and sort of redeploy the staff that's there. As the summary states, it's a commingling of use. It's City Hall with community center with police department use, and so there's a lot all of a sudden happening in this building. The green areas, as I mentioned, was the police station component. This is an urban site, very tight to the property lines. There would be an opportunity for a very small addition on the back, and we could accomplish the police station within this facility. But it's certainly packed in there pretty well. We did take a look at the parking situation. There's approximately 110 or so cars on site, but there is an abundance of city parking on the adjacent roadways and the lots that are across the street. So, well, we didn't do an exact, from a planning perspective, count on parking needs and, assignments. We felt that we could accomplish parking on this piece of property for the additional burden that the staff of City Hall and police would put on the building. The next option that we looked at is really kind of an interim move. We know there's a lot of ideas that have to be sort of vetted out, and some of them might be as you're waiting for new construction or remodeling to occur, that you could redeploy City Hall into an interim location and function out of that space while remodeling or new construction would occur. And we did take a look at the building, the Southfield Road property, basically right, let me get my bearings here, outside on the left side here, where the 2-story Galleria space is. And we developed a floor plan that works quite well. In this graphic here, that Galleria space is on the left in the up and down direction. And the different colors really represent the different departments in the City Hall component. So we have, building department, we have clerk's department, we have administrative services, and things like that. This area is generally, it was office space. It's the volumes are fine. It really is just architectural finishes. It would be very easy move-in, almost move-in ready, but we would want to clean it up and put some like new carpeting and paint and what have you. And if it's an interim move, you could certainly utilize open office workstations, something very cost effective to get the staff, a home base, if you will, so they could do their work effectively.
Is that all on the second floor, Paul?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
You're going to talk about the potential for the new building as part
Yes.
of that one? Okay.
Yes. So as I mentioned, this whole interim idea, it could be connected to a major remodeling. If you were to entertain remodeling this building, for example, you'd have to put people someplace. Or to get out of this building, if the condition became so bad that you needed to redeploy the staff, that's where that idea comes into play. We took a look at, as I mentioned, early on in the process, we developed an architectural space program. And basically, we went through a recipe of spaces. We counted out how many private offices, how many directors need, conference rooms, how many clerical type staff workstations would we need. And that tabulation, which I think is in your packet, results in this two-tiered program. I believe, as I recall, there's about 17,000 square feet or 15,000 square feet in City Hall, 13,000 square feet of needs in the police station. So collectively, about 28,000 square feet. And that's important because if you were to entertain a new construction type project, that's about the footprint that you would require, a gross area. And we did talk about some ideas, even on this site, that a new development could occur to the east, back by the DPS facility. And while we don't have floor plans of those graphics that we could show you, it's certainly very feasible, and the size is going to be comparable to some of these other spaces that we've developed.
Paul, before moving on, just one other comment in reference to this proposal. As he mentioned, we had talked about potentially looking at new construction near the DPW location behind this facility, and with the idea of actually selling the frontage where the building is currently located and using those dollars to help support the new construction.
Yes, very good point. Very good strategy, and it does isolate all of the city functions in one component of this property. The third option, which we call the Allen Road option, was we did evaluate a building down on Allen Road that was the old AT&T, I think you referenced in your executive summary, and whether or not that would be conducive to a remodeling that would occupy or let you occupy the City Hall and police functions within it. And that particular building is very well constructed. Offices were recently remodeled, so there were big portions of it that were move-in ready. And that got us excited and allowed us to craft a couple of floor plan scenarios. Again, this is the colors. There's actually two floors here. This is the lower level, ground level floor that the blue indicates the police department functions. So on the left, you would have all of the staff offices, captain's office, lieutenants, chief, whatever, workstations in the center, locker rooms working very nicely. And in this particular plan, we looked at including holding cell requirements as a part of the solution. There was space to do it. There was a kind of a lower level loading area that would work very well as a sally port. And so we went ahead and did a layout for that. That's actually not part of the program in the 28,000 square feet, but we tested this building for that use, and it works fine. The gray area on the lower right is all existing mechanical space. And then on the upper floor, again, because it's existing space. If you can go to the next slide there. Oh, I guess we don't have that. Okay. But on the second floor, there are a number of offices that are already built. They're nicely finished. I think that remodeling was about 10 years ago. Again, it'd be very move-in ready. But I believe in the executive summary, this is a lease option.
A lease arrangement.
Yes.
Right.
The last option, as a part of your packet, is an option that the city was pursuing, or I guess gathering information in the Fairlane Business Park. We are actually not, have not been a part of these discussions, but we're certainly here, and we understand the floor plan that's presented. This building has about 27,000 square feet per floor available, which matches perfectly with the program. So you can see that, you know, all of the functions would fit nicely into one floor. I believe the upper purple zone is the police department functions, and then the different colors on the lower part of this plan represent the different departments in City Hall. And I think off the lobby, the entrance lobby, then that orange section, that's a new city council room that would be developed. So again, this is like the Allen Road building. It's sort of tenant build-out type space, you know. So you're building out all the interior walls. You're not building exterior walls, and it could be another valid idea to consider. And I also understand this is a lease
It would be a lease
situation.
arrangement, yes.
Yes. So there's a number of options here, and we've actually looked at others as well, but these seem to be the cream that rose to the top, and gives you sort of a smattering of different ways to look at how to solve this problem. It really is just a puzzle that you're moving pieces around. Any questions at this point? Please keep in mind these diagrams are very conceptual, just really testing to make sure things would fit in a big picture idea.
Questions from the council?
May I, Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Hayes.
Can you tell us, all of us, the gross square footage approximately for each of these four options? Because I read in the document, in the Allen Park Community Services, approximately 14,334 square feet would be used for the city hall.
Yes.
They don't give a similar amount of square foot for the police, so I'm thinking
Yes.
another 14,000 for police.
Well, actually, that green area, the new construction was about 8,000 square feet.
Okay, so that'd
Because
be
the
a-
site was so tight, it was the maximum new construction that we felt we could build.
So around 22,000 gross or 23,000?
yes.
And then the other ones, you have 35,000 square feet, and another one 27,000. And then the new city hall you suggest that could be built, I don't
Yes.
see any square footage on that. What did you have in mind there?
That's 28,000 square feet.
28.
And that program is, it's in your big packet with the photographs of the existing, this existing building. It's the very last 2 pages here.
Okay.
And if you look at, there's a pie chart summary page. I think it was on the graphic on the PowerPoint presentation. It does show the 28,000 total gross, and the separation is 15,000 City Hall, 13,700 for police.
I guess my question is, the square footage drives the cost, obviously. New
Yes.
construction obviously is more than retrofitted construction, it would seem to me.
Yes.
And I don't know where one comes up with the optimal, the necessary, the minimal kinds of square footage. I mean, for example, I look at Joyce's office now. Fairly spacious office. It's got a conference table, and maybe that's great, or maybe it's not necessary. Maybe a smaller office with less in a common conference room. I'm trying to figure out the best bang for the buck. My instinct is that we shouldn't be going outside building anything temporary or otherwise. We shouldn't be buying anything or leasing anything. And my preferred position, as they all know, is to use the recreation center. Now, I see the impediments that Joyce and you mentioned about possible restrictions on the ability to adjust the use. But in my experience, and I have fairly regular contact with that building for reasons unannounced here, that suggests that it's very underutilized, and that I think the increase in activity would redound to its betterment. The fact that there's activity there, that there's people paying their water bills there, that there's whatever. And we have the structure, we have the building, and yes, there would be some costs in retrofitting it, but I think in the long term, in our financial condition, I can't imagine us even contemplating moving to build or buy or lease. And that's just my point of view, and I don't know if anybody else wants to contribute. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Do I have any other questions from council at this time?
Maybe the question, though, I would ask that I didn't get really fit. What is the necessary minimal square footage? We're going from like 23 to 28 to 35 to 27. Are those, is 27 the minimum? Is 21? There's 18,000 enough to do these things? What is the minimum?
Because of the programming process that we went through early on, there was actually a survey that we submitted and we discussed with all department heads. This goes back a few years. And we assessed, the types of staffing levels. Staffing levels have changed from a couple years ago to current day. The 28,000 gross square feet was firmed up for the Allen Road building overlay. So in our opinion, that's generally the square footage that you should target. Now, in the other buildings, for example, the Ford building, they happen to have 27. Your program says you need 20, close enough. The community center, there's about 14 available that would be reasonably easy to remodel and convert into office space. So you're short another 14. Well, you may not be able to get it on a single floor for the police. You may have to look at multi-story or something like that. But I'm going to say, our opinion is that 28,000 square feet allows you to function, with an adequate city hall and an adequate police department without holding program areas. So your holding cells are going to be somewhere else because there's about 3,000, 4,000 square feet assigned just for that need, and some cost with sally ports and stuff like that. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
I guess my concern is that I look at Dave's office, it's a massive office, and there's forms and stuff, but
Yeah.
there's a big space, there's really 2 or 3 people in there.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like an awful lot of wasted space. And I'm looking ergonomically and efficiency-wise.
Sure.
What's the best way to maximize at the least cost? We don't need expansive rooms just because that's the way it's always been.
And I don't think you can make the comparison with this building because this building
That's
is
right.
far larger than
Yeah,
what we're
it's more than
talking
you
about
need.
here.
Yes.
It's totally more than what we need.
What is this?
About 83,000 total?
with,
66?
the old sanctuary space is what drives up the total, yeah.
Well, that's that thing next door, right? How many square foot is that?
Roughly 20, 20, 20, between City Hall, the auditorium, and the police department. It's a rough breakdown.
20, 20, 20?
Yeah, that's a rough breakdown.
And I say there's a lot of waste in those 20s. And take that out, that's 40.
Yes.
And there's an awful lot of waste in the 40 left
Yeah,
over.
that's why we're down to
So
the
we're down to
28.
Right, right,
27.
right. Sure. Okay, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Keenan?
Paul, simple question. You mentioned being landlocked a little bit at the back of the community center with where the police function would be. I'm not sure I understand why that would be. You are aware that we own what we call the Charlie Brown building back there, that would be on that end of the community
Is that
center.
the detached building?
Yeah, the detached building. What would preclude us from hypothetically knocking that down and having whatever space you needed back there?
Nothing, and that's a great point, that, each of these options are very, these are at 30,000 feet, and we're trying to get you information quickly, but in a real big picture kind of a way. So we haven't gone deep dive yet, and if that's a variable that changes that, certainly it makes that addition a little bit more size appropriate. We also wanted to make sure we stayed away from those transformers, and we had a a receiving area that, we maintain, so we're not like wasting money taking out something that's very, very costly to replace. But those are thoughts that if you went from 2 or 4 options down to 2, we could go a little deeper and give you some more data to help, make a decision on, where to go with this.
So just to follow up on Councilman Hayes' question, I think from what I hear you saying, the bare minimum that you would suggest would be the 28,000. And if we wanted to add holding cells, you said another 4,000 to 5,000, so.
I think it was 3,000 to 4,000 for holding
For
cells,
3,000 to
yes.
4,000, so roughly 31 to 32,000 square
Yes.
feet. All right.
For what we know today, that's what we see the
And
size
I-
requirement
I
is.
have not had a chance, because we just got this tonight, I just briefly looked at the size of the offices. Can you give us an idea? I mean, obviously, I don't know that I
Yes.
agree that, or think it's a fair statement. Ms. Parker's office is not an office, it's a conference room that she's just occupying. Likewise, Mr. Boomer's
And I use
office.
every square foot in there, too.
Likewise, Mr. Boomer's office is not an office. He is in the records area because his office floods.
Yes.
So
So there
give
is,
us an idea of what you propose as, let's say hypothetically, I noticed in the drawing that I looked at, you had police lieutenant, police sergeant, police.
Yes.
What size
so we,
office are you
so we
talking
try to
about?
standardize, so a director's, the building director's office, generally the same size as the clerk's office. Because, you start to, unless there's like a programmatic need that, I've got a special machine that, it's gonna take another 10 square feet. So at the director level and above, we're at 150 square feet, a 10 by 15 office, okay? Pretty standard. Workstations, we are at 75 square feet. So that's, an 8 by 9 workstation, which are generally pretty standard. So we're not overly excessive on our square footages. Conference rooms are 20 by 20. And that's based a lot on our professional experience as well. We think it's a good idea to standardize unless you get into programming specialties within departments that might cause an office to get larger. If the police chief, there's people I need to conference with within my office. I have to have a small 6-person table. That changes the size of his room, or his office, for example. So those things, you go through the next level of detail, and the program might pull and tug. But generally, I think we're going to be pretty close. And we counted up, file needs. When we surveyed all the department heads, we got an indication of how much file space is necessary. Do they use storage rooms, break rooms? All of those components are part of the recipe that make up that program.
What was the square footage of the offices for the police lieutenants and sergeants I saw?
So detective lieutenants are 150 square feet. And the patrol lieutenants are 150 square feet. Patrol sergeants, generally they can operate in workstation type environments, 75 square feet. So that's that 8 by 9.
You answered my question, thank you.
Okay.
The community center, the total square footage there is how much?
Of the entire building
Yeah, without the ice.
without the ice. Oh, Dave, that's about 100,000. The gym is, I think the gym is 12,000. It may not be 100. I would want to
I'm just,
come back with that
if
exact
we
number.
said we were, if we're taking 22,000, I'm just trying to figure out just
What percent?
what is being given up, or can we rework and maintain our level of programs?
From our perspective, what is, if you recall that floor plan, in the blue areas, we're relocating Parks and Rec in an area that's not utilized, which is that hallway adjacent to the parking lot. And forgive my bearings there. I'm going to call it the south side.
That's, the east side.
East side. So half the city hall functions go into where Parks and Rec go. The other half goes into the 4 community rooms. So what you're really giving up are the 4 community rooms along the south side, as well as about half of that lobby. When we've observed the building, now I haven't been here on a Friday night when there's a hockey game, but generally during the day, the lobby's probably oversized. So that was our target for the city council room.
on the sites that we were looking that are potentially leasing, which is, I guess, the other three, were there any discussions with the potential owners as to what parking is available to our space?
That's a great question. I don't know if you've got that deep yet.
With the other locations?
Yes, on the,
Well,
with the landlord,
Yeah, actually, for the building in the Fairlane Business Center, the property actually have dedicated parking for the building, and it is adequate in terms of our use. So, and it's well-maintained on the outside as well. So there is parking. And then with the 4,000 Allen Road property, there's parking, there's a parking lot adjacent to the building.
yes,
And there's also parking behind the building as well.
yes.
So it's adequate parking there as well.
I-
I think it's really configured better than our current location here.
I was just thinking, though, that sometimes the landlords say the space they're allocating you is at the back, because you're not taking that whole building, right?
Well,
And if they
actually-
have the forward space, that would make a big difference to me for parking.
Yeah.
You know, because access for the citizens, there,
Important, yeah.
you know,
And Mr. Mayor, I think the other consideration with the Fairlane Business Park facility, if the city moved in that direction, the city would actually have all of the space with the exception of a very small part to the rear of the building. And I believe it's the same with the Allen Road property.
the back property site to develop for a new city hall. This site, if you go all the way back and forth, what is 15 acres?
11 total,
11?
11.
Yeah.
So
I was
it'd be
gonna say
about
it
five
doesn't.
and a half, 5.5. We're in the front 5.5.
It's actually closer to 7.5 up to the creek, and the remaining is behind.
So we're not gonna be able to build on the creek, that's wetlands. And what do we do about the 60-inch pipe that goes, drain
You know,
that's under?
certainly there's gonna be site variables that'll come into play. But there was one scenario where we looked at DPS, long and hard as far as expansion and different uses and what have you. So we've walked the property. There's plenty enough land that could be developed. It's how do we get there? Is probably one of the bigger challenges. Is there a dedicated access easement, or, is it on the adjacent Southfield parcel? I don't know, but,
What is our driveway over here? Who owns that?
We don't.
Yeah, I thought we owned it just by the way it is in terrible shape. So, there's the access. It's 2 lanes in and out.
yeah, it's just not good access.
But,
Good condition, yeah.
And we may have to build a protection for the Ford property and, whatever, but I think
Yeah.
we just
Yeah.
have to retain that
It seems to be a good target back
ingress
there,
egress.
because it consolidates all of the municipal functions nicely, and,
It just seemed to me that there's 2 things back there that reduce that space. If it's 11 acres, how much is the wetlands and what does that drain take out? I guess we have to,
we could certainly
Get to
look at that.
yeah.
And I think, on that point, again, there was some comment made by members of the council about the frontage on Southfield being more suited for other uses. So again, we were thinking that it would be another way to leverage the redevelopment on Southfield Road and then have those proceeds to use towards the development if that occurred.
Okay, anybody else have any questions at this point?
I do.
Mr. Templin?
I understand that Fairlane and the 4,000 or 4,000 Allen, they're both lease options? Is that,
They are, certainly, we have had some other discussions about the Allen Road property. I don't know if that will change, but at this point, we're talking about a lease.
leasing? Okay.
And just one other comment in reference to the community center location. In 2003, the voters approved a millage to raise the funding for construction. And it's my understanding that there was also a DNR grant to assist in the construction of the community center. So changing the character of the center may have some issues related to a conflict with the approval for the millage, and so that's something that would require further research.
Have we not looked into that already, Mr. Mayor? I thought this topic has come up 2 years ago, and I think we asked at the time, I know you weren't here, Joyce, but somebody to look into that, and I never heard any argument that says there could be some proscription, but it seems like it would have surfaced by now if there were. And again, I just want to go on record as saying I'm opposed to any leases or construction, frankly. So that should be something we should resolve immediately.
Right, we need to do the research on that.
Right.
And that is on what? Again, I'm sorry.
On whether there's a restriction against our even changing the character of the recreation building.
Right.
The argument is that there may have been some restrictive covenant in the lending or the bond that said so long as this stays a rec center and a rec center only. I kind of have a hard time believing it.
Well, I believe that, and just if you don't let me jump in, I believe I recall what you're talking about with Mr. Zeck. I think that there's two different issues as I remember it, and Dave, you may want to speak to it. Part of it was this, and I think a lot of what you have here was in the existing building. The bonding was for the new addition. So the existing building, I think, according to what Mr. Zeck researched, was not off limits. But the area that was bonded for could potentially be off limits.
Which is the gym and what else?
Which is, from what I see here, most of what you have on here was the existing building.
The community rooms were added, weren't they? Were they not?
Yeah, I think the community
Community
rooms
rooms
were
in the
added, yeah.
lobby.
Yes,
The lobby's
so
all
that,
lobby, yeah.
we are
So
actually
it would be
encroaching
this-
there, yes,
So this front area here would be the
Yes.
only area then,
yeah.
but the police area would be in
This
addition.
rec is, that's all rec, built new.
Yeah, this area here,
It's old.
yeah. So anyway, that's,
Well, and the other thing would be that you'd actually have to look at whoever we bought the land from. Because I don't know who we did buy it from, but if we bought it from Ford, as some people, much to their chagrin, the United States government being one of them, thought they got the VFW property back, and you see that big shopping center there. A lot of people will sell at a price for government, but the fact is, if you stop using it for the specific use, it reverts, and so you would have to check that title. Well, if there's no other questions, well, thank you very much. Before we leave the topic, Ms. Parker, would you want a closed session to discuss numbers for this for next Tuesday, or do you want to send those and then ask the council to come up with a date?
Well, we could certainly look at a special meeting for that purpose next week, or if you'd like, I can send the information out and we can schedule afterwards. It's really up to the city council.
Ask the council, but if we get the material by Friday, you think we would be ready to discuss those options? We wouldn't be voting because we'd be in a closed session to just look at the
Discuss.
numbers.
That'd be okay.
So we would make that the 20th at 6 o'clock, and if we could have the financial information on each of the sites
I can get
by
that to
Friday.
you as early, well, as late as tomorrow. I have that
Okay,
information.
well, but, you know, just so
You'll
our
have it.
outside date is Friday,
Okay.
okay?
Would we have an answer on this restriction on the building too by then? Because there's
We
no
can-
sense discussing the fourth of the four options if we don't know.
Yeah, we can do the research, and if it's, for some reason it's not available, we can let you know. Now, Mr. Mayor, before the architect leaves, is there any interest in taking any questions from the public at all?
Is it okay with the council if we let the public question our architect for
I'm okay
15 or
with
20
that.
minutes? Mr.
Good
French,
idea.
are you available? Citizens, if you want to come up, I know you saw them up there and they weren't full screen, so it's kind of hard to develop that, but if you want to come forward and ask a question of him, I just ask that you come to the mic, and it is Mr. French, am I right?
Cornelius.
Oh,
Cornelius from French.
okay, I'm sorry.
My name is
If
Robert.
you would come back, Mr. Cornelius, and so your answers could be heard by all and recorded for the TV audience.
Yeah, my question really refers to the city councilman, Mrs. Parker.
Mr. Turner?
Pardon me? Robert Turner. I live on North End. I live across the road from the 4,000 address, so city's welcome over. Mr. Keenan, he talked about the Allen Road property, and at that point, part of the discussion was sharing this building with other cities. And I know Lincoln Park, their facilities are really outdated. And I was under the impression that we would share probably a police department, because that's probably the most expensive thing to build. So, for example, if you had Lincoln, I'm using an example. I'm not sure what the size of Lincoln Park facility is, but I know they're cramped. So if you had two cities inputting money, that would cut the cost of each city. And I'd like to see our cities get out of silos. We're continuing to stay in silos, and we aren't good at sharing services yet. So I think this opportunity to evaluate share services going forward. Thank you.
Well, let me just say, Bob, the thing that drew my attention to that building when I saw it go up for sale and what made me bring it to Ms. Parker was that very thing, was the fact that it was right on the border of Melvindale, Allen Park, and literally 3/4 of a mile up from the Lincoln Park border. And I kind of thought that we might be able to do something like that. I don't know how much we can say, but I don't think that Lincoln Park, I think that Ms. Parker kind of approached them and they didn't really like the site too much. So it would probably, at this point, be just us. But, I mean, you can speak to that more if you want.
Actually, excuse me, we did have several meetings with Lincoln Park regarding the potential of sharing a municipal complex where we could maybe share the city council chambers and certain office areas where we could even over time combine staff, which would help as well. They were more interested in another location than the Allen Road property at that point in time.
I understand that.
Certainly, we can revisit that with Lincoln Park. And it's my understanding with Melvindale, their building is in much better condition than ours.
It's a fairly new building.
Yeah, and they're not really looking at another opportunity at this point in time. So I think potentially we would be talking about Lincoln Park.
Yeah. I was thinking more so the police department. I think we need to use our imagination a little bit on the police department. And I'm no expert on this at all. We hear people talk about downriver police department. There's various things. And before we go out and build a police department, it's got to cost you. I don't know. How much is a rough figure? $10 million?
Well, actually, in the proposals that we have, for example, for the new construction, we're talking about just the administrative part of the building for the police department. But as far as the jail part of it, we would look at combining that with another municipality.
Okay, that's what I'm.
Yep, that's exactly what we're talking about.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
It would save us quite a bit.
All right, thank you.
Andrea Hammond, LeBlanc Street. I am extremely familiar with the building at 4,000 Allen Road. I worked in that building when they originally built the building for Michigan Bell, and then I worked in it just before I retired. I worked on both the first and the third floor. I don't know if they fixed it, but the first floor was prone to flooding. I don't know if you're aware of that. Okay, especially from the Allen Road side. As far as the parking lot, you could walk from the railroad track to the building and still have a shorter distance than walking from the front door or the back door of City Hall to this office. It's not that long of a walk. It's a wide parking lot along the railroad, behind the building and both on the side of the building. I mean, when Michigan Bell owned that building, we had upwards of, I would have to say, between the 3 floors, probably 300 people in that building, okay? And you're talking all those cars. Plus we had company cars also in that building. My concern about the 4,000 Allen Road, though, you're talking about the first and second floor. There is the third floor of that building, and it's a leased space. What would you do if the owner decided to lease it to, you know, Joe Blow I mean, how do you protect the integrity of the city records? Okay, that's a concern. My other concern is there any Bond C money left?
From the Southfield lease properties?
Yes.
There is some money remaining. A part of those dollars can be used to help with improvements or relocation related to City Hall. The other part may be used towards relief on the bonds, to pay off the bonds in order to
How much money is
reduce
left?
the debt service. About $2 million.
Okay, because I have a memo that came from Carl Johnson, who sent it originally to John Zeck on 12/12/2011, and that question did come up before, and it was released, the information was given to this council. And what it said was that the Bond C authorization resolution describes the use of the general obligation bond proceeds necessary to acquire certain capital improvement items consisting of the acquisition of certain infrastructure improvements consisting of sanitary and storm sewers, water supplies, street and sidewalk facilities, and the relocation, acquisition, furnishing, and equipping of a public building. My concern is your lease space is not a public building. The only public building that I see that you're talking about at the present time is the community center. And as far as building a new building, where are you going to get the money from? We don't have any money. We can't even make the bond payments on the building next door in a timely fashion. We can't pay the taxes in a timely fashion. Where's the money going to come from to buy a new, or to build a new building? Every avenue should be to move into the community center. That's our building. We could use the remaining Bond C money. And as far as the police department, why can't we negotiate something with Melvindale to house prisoners in Melvindale? We share a court with Melvindale. Why can't we share housing of prisoners with the city of Melvindale and their police department? If I remember correctly, when Wyandotte built their jail, which I believe was one of the last cities to build a new jail, they spent upwards of $12 million just to build the police station and the jail. You know, you're not talking offices either. My concern is let's just stay in city-owned buildings, use the Bond C money, whatever we can, and be done with it. I think you should also look at 100 square foot per person would be more than adequate, not 150 square feet. Now, if you want to give the chief of police 150 square feet, that's fine. Anybody else, whether it be the mayor or a council person or an appointee, 100 square foot or even shared cubicles is sufficient. Thank you.
We close the public questioning, and again, Mr. Cornelius, thank you. I think I got the name right this time. Sorry about that. And Dave, thank you for coming tonight. We'll go to my announcements. I'm going to ask for a consent
So moved.
item for 1, A, B, C, and D only. I'm going to leave 2 off because of its nature. Mr. Hayes has moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Templin. For the audience here and on television, the 4 items for the consent are ice cream vendor permit for James Bacalus for Cooley's Ice Cream and a $200 fee to be paid. Parade permit for Dan Martinez Downriver Runners for August 2nd, $100 fee to be paid. I think that's in conjunction with the street fair. parade permit by Mayor Matekas for the Veterans Affairs Commission for the annual Allen Park Memorial Day Parade. $2 fee to be paid for that. That's this Sunday at May 18th. It will start at 2 p.m. It will end at Champaign Park, and the VFW and American Legion will have a memorial service for our veterans there. And then a bottle drive permit by Sunak of Cub Scout Pack 1055. Flyers out May 17th, pickup May 31st, $2 fee. Are there any questions? Ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried. The item 2, Chris Griffin has an application here to add liquor to the 14595 Southfield Road. Mr. Griffin, are you here tonight? Want to come forward? There may be some questions. I believe this is the Apple Bagel, isn't it?
It is currently the Big Apple Bagels.
Okay. That's the site.
That's the site, but the franchise will cease in June of this year.
I checked with our chief. The Liquor Control Commission has changed. The chiefs no longer approve the application. It comes to us, and I think a copy of the application was enclosed. And you have not been to planning and zoning?
No.
Okay.
No, we're still working through the design process of the restaurant.
Chris, can I, Mayor, can I ask?
Yes,
Mr. Griffin.
Council.
Mr. Griffin, I assume, based on what I read here, this is going to be a sit-down, eat-in type establishment?
Yes.
How many parking spots do you have there?
We currently have, I think we have around 12 spots.
12?
Dining room will stay roughly the same size as it is today.
And what do you anticipate seating?
I think we have 20 seats today. It'll be slightly larger than that. I don't remember what the plan calls for. We're still finalizing the plan. We just finished, the designer just finished the model. He's creating drawings, so we can bring those forward to share with you guys.
Are they adding a second bathroom?
No. We did bring that to the building department several months ago. I spoke to Tony Nicholas. His opinion at the time was, since we're not changing the size of the dining room, he thought we'd be okay being grandfathered in with a single bathroom. Certainly, we can bring the drawings in to look at, though.
Mm-hmm. Is this beer and wine? Is that what you're asking
It'd be
for?
beer, wine, and liquor.
That's Class C?
Class C, yes.
Any carryout of liquor, beer, wine?
No.
You plan on doing any of that?
No.
What do you plan for hours?
We plan closed probably 10 p.m. on weekdays, midnight on Friday, Saturday. We're not looking to be a bar that's open till 2 a.m.
Would it be open Sundays, or would
Yes.
that be the 10 p.m. time?
Sundays till probably 10 p.m.
Friday, Saturdays till noon, midnight?
till midnight.
My concern is, that's one way in. You go one way in off of Southfield, and you go out into a residential street.
Sure.
And it is all residents there until you get to the corner, and then on your right, obviously, is the bank, but still, everything on the left is residential.
Mayor?
Yes.
I would ask this, Mr. Griffin, have, and maybe some of the neighbors on Philomene there, come into your shop right now. Have you talked to any of those neighbors about putting a liquor license in there and how it might affect them?
No, we haven't. I haven't. I can do that.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Is there any
Councilman Templin?
public hearing that we had? I mean, like, there's always a zoning, you send out notices for new businesses, and there's nothing like that?
It doesn't.
We don't have that?
The
we
thing
don't
that
do
puzzles me
anymore?
is, he's here before it's gone to planning and zoning. Planning and zoning would look at it from the point of view of parking. You're gonna look at it from the point of view of bathrooms, but they look at it from the point of view of use and make a recommendation. And they would normally have the public hearing, and they would notice everybody within 300 feet and give them an opportunity. And so my inclination would be, I don't want to delay you because I know if you got it here, you're ready to go. But
We're still several months away. We're in the early planning phases right now.
well, but you have to have those drawings for planning and zoning. That's my point, is my preference would be to see them look at this before it comes to us. I mean, if they say we're not going to have a problem, if the neighbors don't say that it's a problem, then, okay, you know, but,
Is that a problem for you, Mr. Griffin?
No, not at all. That's probably the right way to go. So we'll complete the drawings. We'll bring them into planning and zoning, and then we can reconvene here.
I'll make a motion to table it until it goes to planning and zoning.
I'll support that.
okay.
Excellent. Thanks for
Motion to table until the matter has been taken before planning and zoning. Any other discussion? Ms. Gavaricki?
No, I was just gonna say, you can't have discussion when it's been tabled, I don't think,
Oh,
right?
you're right. You are right.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Going to ask for the vote then on the table. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Pose same sign. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Mr. Cisco and Councilwoman Gavaricki, I don't know who wants to bring this forward or speak first, but
Go ahead,
Okay.
it's yours.
This is a resolution, and I'll read it. Before I read it, we had a terrific thing happen a year ago in July, where the city actually came together and people showed how much they cared about the city table to have an actual march down Park Avenue to Inglewood to Lawrence. And this resolution is to kind of commemorate that day. And so I'll read it. Allen Park United Day. Whereas on Thursday, July 18th, 2013, in the city of Allen Park, a March for Unity was held with the express purpose to move the city forward and celebrate all the positive attributes of the great city of Allen Park. Whereas, due to the combined efforts of Reverend Joseph Malia of St. Francis Cabrini Parish and the Reverend Douglas H. Blakey of the Allen Park Presbyterian Church, a unity march was started at 7101 Park Avenue, the home of the Allen Park Presbyterian Church, and proceeded to 9000 Lawrence Avenue, the home of St. Francis Cabrini Parish. Whereas hundreds of Allen Park residents participated in the Unity March to reflect the pride and spirit they have in their great city of Allen Park. Whereas it is hoped that the Unity March of Allen Park residents from Park Avenue to Lawrence Avenue continues as a newfound tradition to celebrate the pride and spirit of Allen Park. Be it resolved that the third Thursday of July of every year in perpetuity shall be known as Allen Park United Day and shall be marked as such on all city calendars from the 13th day of May 2014.
that is your motion?
That is the motion.
A motion by Mr. Cisco. Do I have the support of Ms. Gavaricki?
Yes, you do.
So that's before us. Either of you want to speak to the motion?
I'm fine.
Anybody wish to speak against the motion?
I wouldn't speak against it necessarily, but I would be disingenuous if I did not wonder how a resolution makes it to the agenda when I've asked for multiple things to be placed on the agenda without success. I don't disagree that it's a good idea. I'm not sure how meaningful it really is because we're going to do this in perpetuity, at least until the next council, when it'll be promptly forgotten. And I'll give you an example of that. A few weeks ago, I attended the advisory committee, and Mayor Richards and Mayor Hubler were waxing eloquent about their strategic plan that they engaged in about 10 years ago or 12 years ago. So I asked Mr. Hubler after the meeting, I said, what exactly was the plan? He says, I don't remember. What did you accomplish? Well, I don't know, it's in the office somewhere. So if I have a little bit of, doubt about these resolutions made in perpetuity, just like our resolution of when we first came into office that no agenda item be placed on the agenda without having first been submitted by the Thursday preceding, and this one is dated today's date, and whether it was discussed last week or whenever, it may have been, it may not have been, I just find it hard to imagine. But I don't say that we shouldn't support such an idea. I just don't happen to believe it'll have much shelf life. So I'm not going to vote against it, but I think I would be remiss if I didn't make those comments. Thank you very much. And furthermore, I don't know if that's the final copy, but I did read it carefully, and I noticed that we spelled St. Francis incorrectly. It's E-S, not I-S. It's a female saint, not a male saint. And I think the Reverend Blakey's name is misspelled as well. So we want to probably correct those before we memorialize this in some kind of formal resolution. Thank you.
If I might speak.
Councilman Cisco.
In spite of Mr. Hayes' negative attitude towards this resolution, I would like to say that there is in the works another march planned for the third Thursday of July that Mr. Hayes is obviously not privy to because for whatever reasons. But there is another march planned. And the idea is, with this resolution, is to not forget about how all the negativity that existed in this city was wiped away by that march. And if we remember that day was stormy. There was thunderstorms. It was a really bad weather day, lightning, and still hundreds of people came out there to support the city, to show their support for the city. And as we go forward, and this memorial kind of continues for that day, I expect it to get larger. And I will be a part of it, and I will ask for everybody to join in all the good things that you think about Allen Park and all the things that you look forward to and believe in Allen Park. All you have to do is just march a little ways and show everybody that Allen Park is your city and that you support it. And that's what this march is about, supporting Allen Park. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments?
Well, since Mr. Cisco chose to invoke my name, I only want to say that I hope that anything I said was not couched in negativity, but rather just reality. I'd like to think that I think I said I support the idea. I was at the march last year. I intend to be at any subsequent marches. I'm just not convinced that we'll see this year after year in perpetuity. And I apologize if that offends his sense of positivism or whatever it is that offends. But I didn't mean to be negative by any means. I could have objected to the very item being on the agenda early on in the agenda because it didn't follow our resolution, but I did not do that. That would have been arguably a negative thing to do. So therefore, I just want to clarify my position.
If there's no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion, signify by aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That is carried. We are at citizens' questions and comments, and they have 5 minutes now, and wow, it's got to be interesting.
I just want to bring up a few things from French Associates in the presentation that Paul Corneliuson did for us, which I thought was a very good presentation. But there were some comments made. I just want to clear the air. They specialize in this type of work. Municipalities, I encourage you to get on the website. That's what they do. Municipal offices, police departments, public buildings. That's really their specialty. earlier Mr. O'Brien talked about the original space planning and stuff at the building next door. They've been around, they did the original stuff that Mr. O'Brien was speaking of. That's how long they've been around. That's much historical data they have. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel with a new group here. This group has been on site for that long. So they have a lot of historical data, a lot of information already. So we're trying to do this as cost effective as possible. So that's why we reached out to them. They did do it with the Allen Park schools. Seems like everyone in the community is very happy with the job that was done there. And the last point, he was silent on some of the questions when it came to the lease agreements and that he has been not part of those conversations. We've asked him to do a space planning service for us, so he has not been in discussions about any of the leases or things of that nature. So things of that will have to go through Ms. Parker. Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. Toasty in here. I'm still Tim O'Brien, a 20-year resident of Allen Park. And I did not make mention of what I think is an important announcement for the people of Allen Park, and that is that the charter amendment that they voted for in November of 2012 by about a 4-to-1 margin to try and protect ourselves against a future possible borrowing by a city council for some get-rich-quick scheme or something, who knows, that charter amendment was struck down by Judge Zielkowski last Thursday when it became apparent that there was an intent to borrow money in this instance from the state of Michigan, and that there would be no a vote of the people per the charter amendment. I filed a complaint in circuit court asking for an injunction, essentially to block any more borrowing without a vote of the people. I'm just not saying you couldn't borrow, just that the charter says the people want to be consulted before there's any more borrowing. So I brought this injunction, and I must say I'm somewhat overwhelmed by the magnitude of the response that I got from the city. I was, first of all, surprised that our retained counsel, who I had been having some nice conversations with, never filed an appearance at all. Instead, there was an appearance filed by Miller Canfield, Paddock and Stone, which is this huge, one of the biggest law firms in Michigan, very expensive silk stocking law firm, suddenly was representing the city instead of our regular city council. Then the Attorney General's office sends not one but 2 attorneys to represent Mrs. Parker. I filed as an individual. I'm not even an attorney. I filed this complaint pro se, and Miller Canfield and 2 assistant attorney generals come down. Why? To defend the authority of this council to borrow money on the full faith and credit of the property owners of Allen Park and not have to ask if they want to do that. And I have to say that, the determination was something to behold. To be one guy, and there's this huge response, and both of us knew. I knew, and the city attorney, or the Miller Canfield city attorneys and the attorney general, we all knew it was not about the $3.3 million loan from the state of Michigan. Okay, that's arguably a pretty smart move. It's a 2% instead of 7.5%. That wasn't what it was. It was about the precedent of whether or not the people have a right to vote before there is any additional borrowing, before somebody else decides to borrow $31 million and go into the movie business. It was not an unreasonable thing. Unfortunately, to add that restriction to the council to require that the people get to vote before there's borrowing, similar essentially to what Headley does with a tax increase, Judge Ziolkowski ruled was a stricter standard than what the state law provided, and therefore the charter amendment was invalid, and it was struck down. And I do want to point out, by the way, that it was not because it was not pre-approved by the governor, as we had been told for the last year and a half. The governor has no part in the charter amendment process. So effectively, when Judge Ziolkowski ruled for about 1 minute, the charter was recognized going back as having been valid. And then he went on and say, but it conflicts with state law and it's out. So that's what happened. But I have to say, you know, getting back to the point I was making about this overwhelming response, Miller Canfield, in their pleadings, one of the things they said was that the affidavit that I filed with my complaint was not valid. And I was just puzzled by that. What could that possibly be? Then, yesterday afternoon, I happened to be talking to a friend of mine, captain of my dart team, who's an attorney, and he tells me, Mary, who's also on our dart team, I'm sorry, I guess I'm out of time. I will just finish by saying that 2 private investigators showed up at her parents' house to verify that she's actually a notary. So apparently Miller Canfield thought I got some fake notary or something, I don't know, but it's a lot of work to go to for one guy.
I got a little surprise for everybody. I hope it is anyway. This contract was terminated. I'm talking about the building authority. Thank you. If you know what happened, I hope you do. Some of you probably don't even know what's going on. But anyway, the contract was terminated in payment in full on all principal, interest, and on all the bonds. We have turned over $330,000 to the city of Allen Park over there, to Mr. Parker. Now, I would like to know where this money's going, because this money was all raised by interest of the members of the board. We raised that on interest. Back in the early 80s, we were getting $4,000 a month almost on interest. So all this extra money was not taxpayers' money. That was the court's money. It wasn't Allen Park, but the way it's written in here, it goes to the city of Allen Park. The court needs money too. But you needed money too. So who's going to get it? The money was raised by the court and the board, but now you're going to take it all away, and Ms. Parker can put it any place she wants to. Is I right or wrong?
I'm going to take a look at what the requirements are and then from there decide what has to happen. I need to look into that. But right now, those funds have gone into a line item for the funding from the building authority. So it isn't a separate line item in our budget.
It's a separate item.
Yes.
Okay. But all I want to know is when you do that, let the people that was on the board that saved this money for the city, let them know what you did with it. Thank
Okay.
you.
If I could, I think, because Mr. Iden asked a question, when I made the motion to concur with the emergency manager for the loan that Mr. O'Brien spoke about, I made the motion subject to that money coming in. And the resolution was, is if the money came in before the May 1st deadline to make the payment, that the amount that we would go to the state for the loan would be reduced by that $330,000. So I thought that that's what we had agreed to up here. That was the motion. That was what was voted on, and that's what carried.
Where did it go?
We had a bond payment due May 1st. Can I just explain
Why
what
not?
happened? Because
Yeah.
it'll show you
Explain to everybody in the city, actually.
how everything can be, how people can cooperate. The council made a recommendation motion to the emergency manager to borrow the $3.3 million. And the problem was she had to have her money by May 1st to make a principal payment of some $600,000 or $700,000. I can't remember exactly the number. So the motion was made and passed that if we got the money before May 1st to her, that it could be used to reduce that principal bond payment. And so.
Did Kip get it to you by then?
So then what I did was I called.
Kip?
No, I had to do something first, because you had to get your 190,000 first, remember that. So I called the court, Dawn Grubb, the court administrator, and I asked if she would talk to the judges and see if they could release their payment to the building authority, the lease payment, which is $190,000 annually payable on May 1st. And she said, I'll talk to the judges. And so the next day, and that would have been before May 1st, probably 10 days. And she brought a check over to me for $190,000, and I turned it over to the emergency manager. No, I turned it over to Kip, excuse me.
Kip?
I got ahead of myself. So I turned it over to the building authority because Kip Horvath is the treasurer secretary. And then I asked the president of the building authority, who is Tom Crete, if they could move their meeting up. They were scheduled for May 5th. It doesn't help the council. It doesn't help us meet our May 1st bond payment. They moved to the 24th.
That's right.
They approved turning over $329,000, I think was the exact amount, to the city. And they got that money to us by the 28th. And I'm assuming that, I think the problem was we had a pending lawsuit, and they may have held some payments. So that, I don't know exactly what happened there, but in any event, all of these people, the 4 members of the building authority, moved their schedule up, and obviously the court moved its schedule up and paid us that last lease payment 10 days early. I think it made it a little easier because they were getting probably about 0.1% a year on their money, so.
All I'm trying to say to you, Mayor, is that people, let's say, volunteer in this city, which I've been a volunteer for 40, 50 years. I was on Recreation Commission also many years ago. But basically, I only look at it, they're trying to help. When we try to go into banks and got a quarter here or eighth here, moving this money around and making thousands and thousands of dollars for the city without the taxpayers having to pay a penny.
Right.
Now we take this money and it's gone.
Mayor,
Thank you.
maybe you ought to explain for the citizens' sake what we're talking about here as far as what the bonding was for and all that.
Oh. When we built the court, we built it with $2.2 million of bonds that had to be paid off over a, I don't know exactly, 20 might have been a 20-year period, or I think it was 25, because I sat on that building authority for many years, and what we did in 2003, we did have excess funds earned in an arbitrage. We were getting more money in on our lease payment on the property, which was the fair market value. The lease was determined to be the fair market value, because remember, the other partner on this court is the city of Melvindale. And so those, at the time when the bond rates really dropped in 2003, we refinanced. We had excess funds. We shortened the payment period. We reduced the interest payments by about 45%, and the state has a formula what you must do in order to do a refinancing, and you have to, I've forgotten what the number is now, it's been a long time, but we shortened that to this present payment that has to be made actually June 1st, but the money's been sent to the trustee who makes the payments, and then we have an auditor who checks to see that all of the bonds that have been, that are due in, we get back, they're canceled, and that there's no outstanding indebtedness on that bond issue. So the court's now paid off. The building authority it has to have an audit. It will then convey the title to the city of Allen Park. City of Allen Park will own the property. We'll have to establish a new lease. The tenant will be the court.
Not necessarily. I mean, there's an agreement in place with Melvindale about a lease, so I'm not sure
Oh.
there will be a new lease.
Okay. Mr. Govier explained to me that he, once being the attorneys for the city of Melvindale, says there may be an agreement in place before any of us were on that will deal with the issues now. We'll have to look at that, but it won't, I don't think it comes in place until probably the audit's complete. So the audit isn't generally complete because the fiscal year for the building authority is June 30th, and it's not a very complicated audit. They make interest payment twice a year, principal payment once a year. They pay the auditor. They have a bond on all the members on handling any money in case there was a problem there. And that's basically the only expenses it has. And, oh, we have to pay the trustee in Minneapolis $450 a year, too, for handling the payments. But nevertheless, has to be an audit, probably is completed by September 1st.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Do I understand that after many decades of service to the building corporation, Mr. Iden has recently retired that position?
Well, they'll all be retired because there's no bonds there. All the other bonds are handled in a different
Well, I wonder if I could ask the chairman if he would entertain a motion to salute Mr. Iden, since he's here tonight, and all the others for that matter, because of his dedication over the years. I know he's spoken many times here about his steadfast attention to that situation. So I would certainly propose that he be saluted by us for his dutiful service for these many years.
Thank you, Don.
Gail Monroe, Moore Avenue. Number one, I have a couple of things. I want to thank and give kudos to the group of students who cleaned up Champaign Park, cleaned up the tracks on Champaign, and took down the Christmas tree lights in Allen Park proper. Congratulations to those young students. I'd also like to congratulate all of the students who are graduating from all of our many high schools this year. They've done a wonderful job, and they are part of our, as you can see back here. The next order of business is what's happening with the grass cutting at Panhandle Park. How come we have so many different lawn cutting people in the city of Allen Park? We've got one for the city, we've got one for the courthouse, and we've got one that's cutting Panhandle Park, which is only cutting the 300 by the 100, and it's supposed to be cut the whole complete way.
That's my understanding. We're planning to cut the entire park.
Okay,
Yes.
so I won't have to go out and tell the guy that Ms. Folks told me that there was no city ordinance that said that you only cut certain things. They were supposed to cut the whole park.
Right, that's correct. So we will follow up and find out what
Okay, because I will be
happened.
checking up on them constantly.
Okay, thank you.
And we did talk with Ms. Folks about the neighborhood coming out, helping. The neighborhood is coming out. We have picked up the park. We're constantly picking up the park. Now, we need the city to do what they're supposed to do. According to Michigan State, there are certified officials that are supposed to be out checking our playground equipment. Right now, Panhandle Park has chipping paint. We've got holes in the metal holding up those swing sets for kids. And I don't think the city can afford another lawsuit like they did 20 years ago at Cunningham Park. And in regards to this, is it July 18th you want for Unity Day? And you want a parade down Park Avenue to Cabrini, right? That's longer than any other parade. And who would be paying for that? Who's paying for this parade? If we've got 4 different parades going on, we can't even pay for our Memorial Day parade, our Labor Day parade. And our Memorial Day is for our veterans. Labor Day is for our union workers and anybody who's ever worked. And we have a Christmas one. So who would be paying for this parade?
The Memorial and Veterans Day Parade are not expenses of the city.
Okay, so that's expenses of
The funds will
somebody
be
another
raised,
group.
or we will get donations from the Festivities Commission.
Okay.
So, but there are no funds being used by the city. I mean, just to give you an example, we have the DPS put out the blockades at Philomene, Champaign, and at Pelham, and they just put them on the corners. The high school Interact Club puts them out at 1 o'clock, takes them down as the parade moves on, and puts them back on the corners. They pick them up. So we're very cognizant about.
Okay, so somebody would be helping fund this unity parade?
Mayor, may I?
Yes.
I think our intent was not to block any streets, was to walk on the sidewalks and not have any cost to anybody. So it would not be funded for.
And the people on Park Avenue are okay with that? I'm just saying you're going to have 5,000 people walking down sidewalks?
Well, that would be very nice. We
I
had
know, I'm just trying to
sidewalks.
think, it's like, okay,
I love your optimism about 5,000 people.
well, I believe it's a good thing, but last year it was only because everybody came together because we were having the vote on the police and the fire department. And we have a lot of senior citizens, and I'm included, that, no, we did not want to lose our police and fire department. But I don't see where we have to go from one church to the next church.
May I comment on this, Mayor?
Certainly.
And just to address what you're saying, so I can say something to you, is the intent was not to have the city to pay for anything. And the intent was to, as how it was funded last year, would be how it would be funded again this year, maybe on a smaller scale. But I've already talked to Father Joe at Cabrini, and he likes the idea. So I've talked to him before I did any of this, and I think it's a positive thing. It's just a way of talking to your neighbors, getting your friends to come out, getting some of the younger people to come out and participate, and just walk for a few hours. You know, I think the parade started at, when would the parade start last year?
I think 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock? Went to
Okay.
like 6 to 8. So it was just a couple hours, and it was just something for the community to get together and do something.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Ms. Parker. Through the chair to Ms. Parker, my favorite question. What's going on with the Hill? I heard there were some serious negotiations and that an agreement would be forthcoming within the next couple months.
And I still believe it will be. We're still working on it.
Okay. And what about next door? What's going on next door, period?
And basically, we're working on some type of an agreement related to the property next door. We're not done with getting that completed, so it's not a lot of information that I can share with you tonight, but again, we're working on it.
Now, in the paper, I believe that you were quoted as saying that this would be consummated by September, October, by the time you left?
Well, I believe because I believe Mrs. Hammond also had a question about the information that was in the newspaper, but the information was part of a communication to the state treasurer related to the emergency loan, and as part of looking at the emergency loan under that scenario, there was the part related to the bond payment for the Southfield lease properties, and under that scenario, that portion of the loan would be required to be paid back within a given time frame, and so there was an estimate of time established in order to give the state some idea of when we might be able to get the property sold.
Okay, thank you. And also, whoever had control of the siren yesterday, you did a good job. You did a good job. People have complained about why the siren went off, but if you've ever been in a tornado, like I have, you will crawl through cement. You will make a hole in cement. Again, thank you.
Good evening, council members. My name is Dorothy Bean, College Avenue. I have a very big concern with DTE utility coming into our area, installing their meters, also known as smart meters. My DTE pamphlet says there's no health concerns. There is no mention about the powerful radiation that's putting off with this meter. There's no mention about the accumulation 24 hours, 7 days a week of this radiation. There's no mention of customers complaining of health concerns after their meter has been placed. I am very concerned about information given to the people regarding this, for their choice to be made, for their liberty of freedom of choice to be heard. Some of the complaints from this meter, health complaints, are headaches, heart palpitations, nausea, fatigue, increased blood pressure, elevated blood sugars, thyroid problems, etc. The list goes on. I believe DTE should hold off coming into this community until time has been given to your citizens here to make an informed consent on it. I asked you to let the citizens be informed before you allow, I pray, before you allow DTE to come in. I'm asking the council at this time to pass a resolution to allow our analog meters to stay in place. The opt-out plan is not safe as well. I'm also asking at the next council meeting if there can be a representative for DTE to come up here, along with a representative of the smart meter complaints to come up here, for both of them to come up here to educate the people. And I'm asking you, I'm hoping that DTE will stop the installation of any more meters until this people of this city, this community, can have a chance to make their choice. If this is what they want, they can investigate on their own. There's much research on the internet regarding many complaints about health concerns. I pray for our liberty to be noticed and our voice to be heard. We may not all agree, but these people that are getting sick, they have no choice but to go to the doctors. The radiation that's being outputted by this is a very big concern. And I pray that the people of this city will be knowledgeable and be informed of the risks that they are involved with. Some may not be sick right away. Radiation is radiation. It's going to affect you. If it's not immediately, it can be down the road. So I pray that everyone knows and they are informed. Nothing is mentioned in this pamphlet that I received from DTE. Nothing is mentioned about radiation in here. They say no to health concerns, health hazards. So I asked, again, to have a DTE representative here, along with a representative of a smart meter complaint. I thank you for this concern, and I hope that the liberty of our citizens are justified. Thank you very much.
Walt Jordanic, Bel Air Avenue. The past 2 or 3 meetings, I wasn't here early enough for today's, but Mr. Mayor, you talk about rules of decorum, and you ask when citizens come up, they give their name and their address, where they live. And our first person, I don't know who that was. Oh, this gentleman right there didn't announce his name. Our second person who came up, Mr. Tim O'Brien, announced his name again. Our third person didn't announce their name. I know who that was. And let's see. Our fourth person did. And then our sixth person did not, Mr. Wojcinski. So you're batting about 500 until this lady and myself came up here, Mr. Mayor. So if you want us to follow the rules of decorum, when people come up, pay attention. I don't care if it's Mr. Boomer, Mr. Iden, Mr. Wojcinski, because if I see it again, I'm not going to tell you my name. I would like to know, in regards to City Hall, where, a lady asked earlier, where are we getting the money to build a new City Hall? Where are we getting the money to remodel this City Hall, to build a separate police station, to do any of this? And I know Ms. Parker said she does not want to go into detail about costs because they're in negotiation. All I ask is, where are we getting the money?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Ms. Parker.
Yeah. Basically, as far as new construction, we did receive from the architect an idea of what the cost would be. So there's two things. One, where the city could actually work with a developer for a build-to-suit type of scenario where they build the facility and lease it back to the city for an amount over a number of years. The other part that we had talked about is selling the frontage on Southfield Road, because we would not build at this particular location right at this site. And those,
This being the frontage.
right, this being the frontage, that could be used to help support the cost related to actually handling any type of lease payment arrangement. And under this scenario, the city would own the building within a number of years as part of that payment structure that would be in place. So the city could pay over a number of years. At the end of that term, the city would then own the property. So let's say it's a 10-year lease or a 15-year lease. At the end of that time frame, the city would own the property for like $1 as part of the conveyance. And so those are the two areas that's being considered. And then thirdly, because the building would be used for municipal purposes, any type of debt structure potentially could be tax exempt, which would save money as well.
And where are we getting that money?
Well, what is for the budget for the next 2 years, and part of what we'll be doing is a 5-year budget for the city, probably around August or September. But in the budget, we've actually set aside a certain amount of money towards a lease payment in the event that the city decided to take that approach, just to make sure that if we did any type of consideration for leasing property, we had to really identify whether we could afford to do it or not. So that's built into the budget for next year.
Could this maybe be part of our emergency loan of having a surplus in case an emergency came up, like a new city hall?
Oh, you mean as far as a loan through the state?
Well, you just approved a $3.3 million loan to make a pension payment and
Right, now,
a bond payment.
yeah, under the state's Emergency Loan Act, there's certain requirements in order to qualify. This would not be one of those items that would qualify.
Thank you.
Mr. Judanik, before you sit down, if I might, just because they can't come back up and speak, I write down everybody that speaks at the meeting, and you are correct, and I will buy off that I wrote Mr. Boomer's name down without him announcing it. But to Mr. O'Brien, Gail Monroe, Al Wojcinski, Dorothy Bean, and Walt Judanik, they all announced their names. You may not have heard them in the audience, but I do not know Miss Monroe and I do not know Miss Bean, and I wouldn't just get their name out of midair, but they did announce it, you didn't hear it, so I just want to give them the opportunity to know.
Sorry, I was sitting right next to Mr. Wojcinski right over here when he came up. He did not announce his
He may
name.
not. I'm sorry, I meant the two ladies. I don't know about Mr. Wojcinski, but the two ladies did, so I just wanted to be clear on that.
Do you have Tim O'Brien down twice?
I do, as a matter of fact. I'll show you my agenda after.
My name is Eileen Nielsen, and I live at 15234 Hanford Ave in Allen Park. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members, for giving me an opportunity to speak. I'm here tonight because of my great concern regarding the smart meters that DTE are going to start to install any day now, according to the letter they sent out in April. They said they'd start installing them in Allen Park in a couple of weeks. So I have researched this matter and the meter, and have found out it is very dangerous to our health, our privacy, and financially. Some countries like Germany have banned it, as well as most towns in Oakland County. There are also some states who have banned it. Some surrounding towns have banned it, such as Dearborn Heights and some others. This meter causes serious health risks to healthy human beings and unhealthy human beings. And whether you have the opt-out option that DTE claims you can have, it doesn't matter. Your health is still very much at risk. Children's health, people who have pacemakers, very serious chronic health problems. Everyone, healthy or not, is at a very serious risk. The World Health Organization considers this to be a Class 2B carcinogen. It has been proven to have adverse effects on diabetes, seizure disorders, the heart, carotid artery, increased heart rate, migraines, blood pressure skyrocketing, just to name a few. I am asking the City Council, who is elected by the good people of Allen Park, who are responsible for our welfare as to what you let in or not let into Allen Park. I'm asking you to have a meeting between a DTE official and a smart meter educator. I'm asking this as many or most residents of Allen Park are not aware of the extreme danger of these meters because simply the pamphlet that DTE sent out is false. And there's much information to back it up. So I've touched on health-wise, there's a privacy issue, and there's a financial issue also. DTE claims it will not increase your bill, your electric bill. That is not true. The family next door to me had one installed unbeknownst to them, and their electric bills have just skyrocketed with the same amount of energy use or less, because they both work many, many hours, 7 days a week. I'm asking that you please have this meeting soon, and also to let it be widely known, published, not held at a last moment so that people can attend. We the people have a right to hear both sides to make up our own informed decision. I ask the City Council to pass a resolution that citizens have the right to keep their old analog meters and the opt-out, because the opt-out is not safe. You still have the meter installed and you're still getting those effects And even though you have the opt-out, dirty electricity is still coming into your home, still causing serious adverse immediate issues. The radiation from this meter is a 24/7, not like the cordless phones or microwave or other appliances. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Rochelle Davenport, Allen Road, Allen Park. I'm with these two ladies, that's why I'm here tonight. I am so against this. I am so against this. I've been here 21 years. If those meters come to my home, I have to move. I cannot take that because we already have health issues now. I cannot take any more issues. I think it's horrible, and I pray to God that you guys get something done and have those meters to not show up of any of our homes in Allen Park. It makes me sick. We cannot allow this. If it comes to my house, I'm going to have to move out of the city. Thank you.
Sandy Van Houten, 15846 Dasher. I have a son on the autism spectrum, and I'm very, very concerned about the smart meters. He has, fortunately, up till this point in time, not exhibited a lot of the sleeplessness that affects people with autism. But in the past year, we have had a smart gas meter installed on our home. At the time, they sent me a letter about needing to replace my gas meter. I was in the midst of a health crisis with my brother and my daughter and just kind of didn't pay too much attention to it. When the electric smart meters came to my attention, I had a fella come out to my home and put a lacking housing because I was so concerned about this meter being changed without my knowledge. So I had him look at my gas meter, and he said, yes, what you do have there is a smart meter. In recent months, my son has been getting up during the night and having difficulty sleeping, which is one of the issues, the health issues that do arise with smart meters. Crumbling fillings is another one, and I've had like crowns falling out of my mouth all of a sudden, which gets expensive. So I'm very much against these smart meters, and I would like to encourage everybody. I do have some flyers with me if anybody in the audience is interested in getting one. It has a lot of websites to look at. Things that we can do as citizens is send a certified letter to DTE informing them you don't want their meter. There is a bill in the House and the Senate, so if people could pressure their congressmen to act on it, it would be great because it's just been sitting there since February. They haven't been getting the public pressure that they need to act on it. Also, a letter to Attorney General Bill Schuette. I'd also like to encourage people to put no trespassing sign on their property because then DTE has some legal issues if they do come on your property. And also put a tag on your analog meter stating that you don't want a smart meter on there, and you can also padlock it. Thank you.
Good evening, Andrea Hammond, LeBlanc Street in Allen Park again. I have a question for Mrs. Parker through the chair. Back in February, I sent you an email and I asked you about whether after you're gone that this mayor and council has the ability to remove the city administrator because it's an appointee. I also asked you about Dorcas McCurry. You wrote me back and said that all city employees are employees of the city, including Dorcas and Karen, and both are appointed positions and receive benefits. I sent you another email, and I asked you to please answer my question as to whether, when you're gone, the mayor and council has the ability to remove them because the charter says that they have that ability to remove anybody that's an appointee. You told me that you didn't know and you would get back to me. I told you, I sent you another email, and I said that that was unacceptable, that you have a city administrator at your beck and call, you have an attorney at your beck and call, and that you should be able to give me that answer within 3 days. Well, Mrs. Parker, it's been 2 months and I still don't have an answer from you. So in my way of looking at it, you basically lied to me because you said you'd get back to me and you never did. Also, I appeared before this body 2 months ago about the taxes on the property next door. I was told by the treasurer that she got a check from the city dated the 28th of February, and she posted those taxes as being paid to the city website. She didn't have time to get the information together for Wayne County. She said it would take a couple weeks. Well, in my book, a couple weeks is 2. Here we are, 2 months later, and as of yesterday, according to the Wayne County website, the taxes have not been paid. Are you having a cash flow problem and you wrote the check but told the treasurer not to cash it? You know, what's the deal? She could have walked downtown to the Wayne County building 4 times there and back. Excuse me, I'm not done yet. You can respond after I'm done, because this is my 5 minutes. Also, according to the Wayne County website, this is just for one building, the building next door, not the building at 8301. We are incurring $29,665,000 in fees for not paying that tax bill. That's a concern. And you know, I know somebody's going to say, well, the county they'll just wipe those fees out. The concern is, why isn't this bill paid to the county? These are school taxes you're talking about that were on that tax bill to the city of Allen Park schools. You know, you've got zoo taxes, you've got RESA taxes, it's not just city of Allen Park taxes, because that's a wash. You've got other taxes that are on there. Why aren't they paid on the Wayne County website? That's my concern. Now, if you want to address both of my questions, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Mrs. Hammond, on the question that you raised related to 2 of the city employees for Allen Park, I didn't respond to your question because I don't really have a response. And that was basically what I shared with you in the email.
What's the attorney for?
Well, the attorney doesn't make that determination. You know, the city of Allen Park is in a unique situation in that the city's in receivership.
I understand that, Mrs. Parker, I understand that. I want to know what happens when you're gone.
Can I finish? Okay. So the city is in receivership, and as a result of that status, at the time that an emergency manager is no longer here, there may be some other determination in reference to how the positions will be handled. That's not going to be my responsibility.
I would imagine that would be your final order, which is something that I did share with this body. Thank you.
So basically, that's my response. Until I have some final information to share with you, I do not have any information at this point in time. In terms of the taxes being paid, to my knowledge, they've been paid. I think that we should touch base with the city treasurer, and she was at the meeting at the time that you brought that issue up, and she did provide a response.
Yes, she did.
Right. So I think ideally it would make sense to make contact with her and find out if something has changed since the time that you raised that issue, because it's new information to me. So I will follow up.
Would you like this? This came directly off the Wayne County.
I can certainly have her take a look at it.
You've used your allotted time, please.
Mrs. Parker, would you like this?
Sure, I'll take it. Okay.
I'll tell you my name first.
Ray McGusson, Quant, citizen of Allen Park, good evening. Through the chair, Ms. Parker. Earlier at the meeting, you made a comment that you and City Council will be getting together in closed sessions to go ahead and go over either buying property or redoing the city hall or moving it or wherever you're going to do. Closed session. First of all, I'd like to know why. And another thing, give me a couple seconds here since I got all kind of time. According to the Open Meetings Act, which I know you still have to follow, it says all decisions of a public body shall be made at a meeting open to the public. No decisions can be made in closed sessions. None. You can go ahead and you can go over it. You can talk about it. You can even negotiate. You're not allowed to take no votes. You're not allowed to make no decisions. All those decisions must be done at an open meeting with the public to allow them to be able to go ahead and make comments on it. Number two, $31 million next door done during a closed session with no vote of the people. None. Absolutely none. This is nothing negative. This is the facts. This is the reason why we're in the position where we are. The Attorney General, lawyer, after the court session, I had a little talk with him. Here's what he said. You, City Council, and Mr. Mayor, are allowed to go ahead and go to the citizens and ask them to go ahead and vote on these matters. But you also have the authority to borrow money. And like Mr. Keenan brought up earlier in the year, that you have a problem, then you need to go borrow money, you need to go borrow money. I understand that. But $31 million borrowed without the voice of the people. So before you go for any kind of money, anything, hopefully you understand, and the City Council here can go ahead and vote together to give it to the voice of the people to vote for it. Either we want to move city or we don't. And I understand there's more than just me. There's a number of citizens that will like to make sure that they get their time on the ballot to either vote. Now here's what the City Attorney General told me, from the state. Did you vote for those people? Because if they voted against your will, vote them out. That's what he said. So, Ms. Parker, you can, please answer the best you can.
Well, Mr. McGusson, you are correct about the process related to going into closed session. Certainly the council can discuss certain things in closed session, but any vote would be in open session. You are correct.
And any decision that you make will be. And hopefully it is made at maybe an open meeting where we can come up here and make comments during that time before the vote is done. What was I'm going to ask one thing, and one thing, because since I have a little bit of time. Ms. Parker, I myself would like to know why our attorney here was not able to represent you or us, our city, at the hearing that happened last week. I think he's more than capable of saying the exact same thing that 9 lawyers said, 9 of them. Oh, yeah, you're a lawyer. Miss Parker, and they're all lawyers. There was 9 lawyers there, count them all. Okay, Miss Parker, go.
Well, Mr. McGusson, you are correct. Our city attorney is certainly very capable. It's not part of their contract with the city, so I just want to clarify that. And then secondly, with the lawsuit that was filed, it was in direct kind of like contradiction with PA 436, which is a state law, and also the state laws related to borrowing money. And under PA 436, if you look at the act itself, under certain circumstances, the Attorney General's office will get involved, primarily because those provisions within the act impact other cities other than Allen Park.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Charles Champagne, or Charles Blunt Champagne Road. I don't come to one meeting and everything's different with 5 minutes. Thank you so much for that 1 minute. Personally, with the moving this city hall, the one thing I really hope there is air conditioning, as I see everyone fanning themselves. I personally would like it to be at the community center, only because Roosevelt would be at, it would have the courts right there, the fire department right there, and if we have the police and the city hall right there, everything will be at one spot instead of farther away from the middle of the city. Secondly, the for roads incidents, between Champaign and Belmont, there's a little patch on Allen Road. I know it's Wayne County Road, right across from the KFC. There's a little patch that is very bumpy that I would love to see get fixed. If you can get Wayne County to fix it, that'd be wonderful. And then lastly, the Sunday with the Memorial Day Parade, I really hope that just like the Unity Day walk thing, that everyone's out there on Park Avenue and Champaign, just being there, supporting everyone that veterans that gave us this right to speak up here, to have you guys up here, the votes and everything. And I would love for everyone to, tonight or tomorrow and this week, to call someone in your family or your friend or neighbor and say thank you for all the rights that we get today. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Patricia Veers. I live in Allen Park on Hanford. And also, I'm Patricia Veers, and I live on Hanford. And I'm here also about the smart meters. Can you hear me okay? I'm a little short, so excuse me. But I am also a concerned citizen about the smart meters, so I just would like the council to think about what we're saying, because we are concerned. I'm in Allen Park, and I'm not a proponent of smart meters. I don't want one in my house, and I want to be given the choice. And I really don't want the smart meter in my house. They've been coming by today, and they've been hitting a lot of our neighbors right now. They came to my house already, but I already got a lockbox put on Friday. I wrote a letter to DTE and refused service, but I just think we need more education about the health, detriments, and I don't want to subject myself to any extra radiation. I do my best to stay healthy and eat healthy, and I just, I think Allen Park is a great place to live. So I just really, if you would just carefully consider our requests. Thank you.
Gail Monroe. I used to work for DTE for over 30 years. The smart meter, as far as I'm concerned, is a wonderful thing. because I am tired of being the only one in my neighborhood calling when we've got a power outage. This way DTE knows that there's not just one person out, there's going to be 400 or 500 in your area. If you refuse, that's up to you. You've already got an opt-out program. It says you pay $87, I think, a month. $9.80? Well, you're already paying. Right, flat fee, but you're paying $9.80 for, right, a month. You're already paying for a meter.
Wait a minute. Just, you'll speak here.
Okay.
Pam
You're
wants to
already
speak,
paying
she'll
for a
come
meter
forward.
anyways on your electric bill. But as far as I'm concerned with the smart meter, I mean, if your power goes out and you're the only one calling, you know, why should I have to sit there and call for all of my neighbors?
Thank you, Ms. Monroe. You've already come up and your 5 minutes is up, but
Right.
thank you for bringing
But I
it up.
just want to say, you know, everybody's concerned about the health things with those meters.
Yeah, you're not allowed to come up again, though, so we appreciate the mayor
All
letting you
right.
speak. Yep.
Any other citizens? I'm going to go to council then, and I'm going to start tonight with Mr. Cisco.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to, talk about the community center for a second, in that we talk about how there was a vote to not allow the city to borrow any money, and there was an overwhelming vote. But there was also a vote to have a community center, strictly devoted to the community center in 2003. So do we ignore those people that voted for that and put City Hall in there against the wishes of the people that voted for a community center? So, you can't have an argument on both sides. You're either on one side or you're on the other side. So I think everybody should look at that a little closer in the intent of the community center versus sticking City Hall in there. And although the really smart people back there, all the high school seniors, have already left already, so I congratulate them for getting their good education in Allen Park and leaving when the leaving's good. Mr. Zonta's still here, but there's not too many more. I believe the last day for the seniors is May 30th. It's the last day, and graduation for Allen Park is June 6th. So I wish all the students good luck in the future, and they won't be at too many more meetings here. Maybe one more, and wish them good luck in all their future plans, and hope they succeed and live through all their dreams, and hopefully one day come back and live in Allen Park and make Allen Park a better place. Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Templin.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. It's hot. Welcome to Michigan, because this weekend it's going to be in the 50s. Appreciate everybody's comments. It sounds like we need to get a little, have an educational session about these smart meters. Hopefully DTE and we get somebody in here to answer some of these questions. Again, thanks for coming tonight, and have a good night.
Ms. Gavrecki.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll echo those comments. It's very warm in here tonight. Thank you for coming out tonight. I want to thank the Building Authority for the job that they've done, and appreciate their services as well. The Memorial Day Parade is Sunday. Hope to see everybody out to honor our veterans. And also the question regarding the Allen Park United Day and the walk and everything like that. We also are part of the Allen Park Melvindale CERT program as well, so we could get assistance from them to come out and help, as long as we notify them in advance. So it wouldn't be a cost to the city, so it was not intended to cost the city anything. So thank you, and again, I guess I'll congratulate the seniors next week. Thank you.
Mr. Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to mention, and I've neglected doing this for many months, if not a couple years, and I don't know the guy's name, but there's a citizen of our community who virtually every single day is on Allen Road by the theater, by the Triangle Restaurant, or Dick's 2, or whatever they call it now, the coffee shop, picking up papers. He has a little grabber, picks up papers, puts it in a can. He's been doing this for as long as I can remember. Never asked for any acknowledgement. You know, he's not beating a drum. He's not trying to get a photo op. He does it every single day, and I just say, God bless you, sir, and thank you, whoever you are. I just saw him the other day. Secondly, you'll recall that I think it was the last meeting we had the woman here with the noise problem. Well, I got a call from her today, and I was invited over to her house to listen to the noise. And as Bob mentioned, Mr. Keenan mentioned that he thought maybe the neighbor had a compressor that may have been the source of the noise. So I happened to go by the neighbor's house, Mr. Dawson, and I asked him, I said, sir, do you mind if I ask you a question? He said, sure. And we talked a little bit about the problem. He went to his garage, turned on the compressor, which was virtually silent, and I said, would you mind leaving it on for a few minutes while I go back to her house? So I go back to her house, and I ask her, I said, did you hear anything now? And she says, no, it's not doing it now. I said, well, you understand, I just told him to turn on the noisemaker that was the only thing we could figure could have been causing you noise. And frankly, your refrigerator is making more noise than any compressor is. And I said, ma'am, I wish I could help you, but I can't because frankly, there is no problem that I can discern. So I don't know if that's going to satisfy her, but we tried. I know Bob's been over there several times, and I just happened to get a call out of the blue today, and I just ran over because I had time on my hands. Finally, recently, some of you know the Palatine Fathers, the Irish missionaries who are in Wyandotte. They have served this community. We used to have Father Gormley at St. Francis Cabrini for many years, was one of the Palatines. You've seen their priests come over to preach during Mission Sunday weeks and things like that. Recently, Father T.J. Maloney, who's been in Wyandotte for many years and served St. Joseph's Church and other parishes around, passed away. He was a native of County Clare. He's actually quite a young man. He was only in his 60s, I think. But he passed away. He was quite an aficionado of Irish music. He came from the west of Ireland, where it's a heartbed of real Irish music in County Clare. And he had a giant funeral, I guess, in Wyandotte at St. Joseph's, which is now called St. Vincent Pallotti Parish, after St. Vincent Pallotti, who was the founder of the Palatine Missionaries. And so I know that many people in our community knew him. If they hadn't heard about his untimely passing, it happened while I was on vacation, so I wasn't able to attend the funeral, but I heard the funeral. It had about 800 people in the church and as many more at the afterglow. And then I'm sure there were some other afters. Knowing the Irish, I'm sure Dunleavy's was probably crowded with some of the leftover folks. But anyway, we will miss him. He was a great, devoted servant to the sick and needy. He would go visit people in the hospital. In fact, his last job was at Wyandotte Hospital. He was the chaplain over there in the latter part of his career. So just wanted to make mention of that for those of you who know the Palatine Missionaries. They've lost one of their members. And with that, I think that's all I have tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Keenan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't normally do this, but I do want to address something that was in the News Herald. Certainly, there's been some discussion tonight about the lawsuit regarding the emergency loan, and the proponent of the lawsuit wrote an op-ed in the newspaper, and I'm not going to go through it all, but I cut out the last portion of it because, quite frankly, I took great offense to it. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I just circled a few things, and it says, given the obvious obstinance of our public officials, both elected and appointed to even respond to me, we owe the voters of Allen Park an explanation and what have you, and different things like that. And several of you out there, I know, are at every meeting, so you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But we discussed at great length all of these different options, and quite frankly, the meeting that was scheduled to take the vote to concur with Ms. Parker, we tabled the vote specifically because this gentleman came up and said that Ms. Parker had the ability to just break contracts and she could take her pen and wipe out the 60-month term that the pension board said and make it 10 years, and she can dictate the interest rate, and she can do all these things. And there was another gentleman that came up and had some concerns that we didn't have answers to. So this body tabled that in order to go back and get the answers. I personally met with Ms. Parker and Ms. Folks for probably at least a good hour to an hour and a half and went over several items. These were some of them. Then we read in the paper after we came back and reconvened, stated here publicly that Ms. Parker did not have that ability, according to the discussions that we had, to be able to dictate to the pension board. It was not a contract like the police contract was. And we stated that publicly, and then we made our vote after doing our due diligence. But in today's day and age, anybody can say anything they want. You can come up to this microphone right now and say it's 12 o'clock out there and sunny, and unless somebody comes up and questions you, you know, that's it. And I take exception when we do up here as your elected officials, and all of us own property in the city, we all pay taxes, every decision that's made up here affects every single one of us. When we do our due diligence and a resident comes up to the microphone and brings a concern, and we table based on that concern, go back and do more due diligence, come back, explain to you that the concern was not valid, and then you go ahead and write an op-ed in the News Herald to try to make us look foolish. I take exception to that. And I think that was uncalled for. And I just want to make that public. You know, we take a lot of grief up here for a lot of things, and I'm fine with it. I've said before, as an elected official, I knew when I ran for office that I had to have some armadillo skin, because everybody thinks they know how I think and what everybody knows everything more than what I know. And everybody knows, you know, what's discussed in closed session meetings and all these different things. But I will tell you, I'm going to go back to what I said the night that we made the vote. In my mind, there was 3 options with the emergency loan. We could either not pay it, and they would sue us, and it would go to a judge, and Ms. Parker cannot impose taxes. It would go to a judge, and the judge would impose those taxes on every one of us to be able to make up that $2.6 million. There's no doubt in my mind that would happen, because the pension payment has to be made. The pension board lost $400,000 because they didn't have that $2.6 million in their coffers on interest alone. They would have sued us. It would have been on your tax bills. The second option was to pay back. They offered us to pay it back over 5 years at 7.5% interest to the pension board. Or we could take the third option and go to the state and pay back at 2% interest over 10 years and budget for it and make the payment and not be as adversely affected. And the other kicker on it is that if for some reason we defaulted on a payment, the state would withhold our revenue sharing. At no point would it go on your tax bill. But if we defaulted on a payment to the pension board, it would immediately go on your tax bill as part of the agreement. So everybody up here was trying to look out for your best interest, and that somebody has the audacity to go up and put falsities like that in the News Herald and act like we don't know what we're talking about. And I take exception to that. So I just wanted to clear the air on that. Unfortunately, and I'm going to give the person a little bit of credence, that as you can see now, they come in and make their statements and then they leave. So they may not know that we explained this, because they walk in, they make their statements. I'm surprised they stayed as long as they did tonight, but make their statements and they leave every meeting. So they may not know that this was discussed. Thank you.
Clerk Mizzy.
I'd just like to thank y'all for coming out tonight. God bless you and good night.
The City Administrator, Ms. Folks.
The only thing that I want to say is thank you for hanging in there despite the heat in this room. So have a good evening.
Emergency Manager, Ms. Parker.
Just a couple of quick items. 2 appointments have been made, one to the Police and Fire Civil Service Commission, Mr. Sid Alley, and then secondly, an appointment has been made to the Festivities Committee, Kathy Gorski, and so I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the mayor and the council. And then secondly, I'm not going to get involved in this report in a lot of detail. I can provide it to the mayor and council, but we just recently received our OPEB evaluation, which is directly related to our health care liability long-term for active employees as well as retirees over time. And with the changes that we've made, our liability has reduced by $3.2 million per year, and the accrued liability over a time frame has been reduced from $139 million to $93.1 million, which is a reduction of $46.7 million. And so certainly, you know, it's not to a point where we do not have any liability, but the amount has decreased substantially, and I'll make sure I'll get a copy of that report to you. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for coming out and their patience of staying this late, but I do want to address the smart meter issue. Please remember, we've had a smart meter in our homes for many years. That's your water meter. I talked with Ms. Bean for, I think, almost 2 hours about this. I called Madeline Williams, who's Community Affairs at DTE. If you go to her site, they have 9 studies on the smart meters. I also went, because the Michigan Public Service Commission had to approve putting this in, and their staff prepared a report, June 29th, 2012, U-17,000 report to the commission, and concluded that there was no danger to the people who would have smart meters installed on their house. They also attached, which you can be a little bit more skeptical about, the Utilities Telecom Council, because obviously if they're telecommunications people, they're very unlikely to have a report that they're going to issue if it worked against them. But it has some very interesting things if you read that one that's attached there, because it talks about the amount of time. If you ran this thing at the maximum, it would be 6.7% of its capacity a day to operate. In general, it's going to give off electrical materials 0.11%. It's a very small amount of usage necessary for this, and it reduces the cost. Obviously, it's not good for employment because it's going to reduce the number of meter readers, obviously. It's quite an interesting report that the Public Service Commission comes out. Now, I'll leave that. I called Mr. Pruskowitz, the clerk of the Dearborn Heights, because that commission, or that council and mayor did try and stop the DTE Energy, that's the parent company, from installing or charging, and the courts overruled them. So the statement that Dearborn Heights was able to prevail is not true according to the clerk of that city, and I could find nothing about Oakland County being able to opt out. So you know, I don't know where everybody's getting their information. I tried to get this because I thought if there was something that was in the materials by what I would consider respected researchers, then maybe we would look at it. But I think the horse has left the barn, according to the Public Service Commission, and I don't see that anybody's going to be able to stop these. You can opt out on its usage, and I think that's the $9 or $8.67, whatever they sent us, because it's a high cost, because the meter readers are going to be hopscotching all over a city to read these meters. It isn't like they come in and go one meter after another. So it's unfortunate that there's literature out there that seems to say otherwise, but in terms of our Public Service Commission, who also is supposed to represent the citizens of this state, they feel that we're in no health jeopardy. And looking at the report, it seems pretty solid to me, but I understand the concern because I've seen the others, and there is a web page out there on smart meters. But I urge you to go look at the DTE Energy site and go to the Michigan Public Service Commission and go on their site and look at their study. And they have that other appended study. I think the data in it how it measures usage, I think, is interesting, whether you agree with the conclusions, but I think the data's, I think you're hard to argue that the meter's going to operate in this manner, it's only going to operate so much during a day or month or a year, so I don't think that can really be contested. With that, I shall I hope you will come out for the Memorial Day Parade this Sunday. We'll begin at 2 o'clock at White Street. It'll proceed Southdown Park to Champaign, then go Champaign and conclude at Allen Road, Pelham. And our Veterans Memorial is there. The American Legion of VFW have a program there for veterans, and we will have that. There will also be, for those people in attendance, the American Legion is going to be serving hot dogs and soft drinks under the canopy, and there'll be another tent there. So hope I'll see you at the parade on Sunday, and I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Mr. Keenan has moved. Supported by Mr. Cisco. All in favor? Aye. Opposed,
Aye.
same sign. We are adjourned.
Oh.
No. 8:32.